As we close, you're 57 years old, you're going to sit through 3 presidents, you're going to be the longest running Supreme Court Chief Justice. And, well, it seems like you don't have everyone on your side, clearly, in the Supreme Court. What do you think is the problem? I mean, do you think people want you out because, one, you're a woman, you're young, and you're frankly going to be there for way too long?
Maybe that last phrase is the important thing, no? Way too long. But may I have this appeal? You see, the electronic court system that we were able to implement, the entire EISP, the entire reform programs, these cannot be done when the leadership of the judiciary is very short. It's not simply possible. As any government administrator knows, a computerization program usually takes off in 5 years and 10 years. Some need to be even iterated so that you will really need things to take root. And there are more than 30,000 employees in the judiciary. And we have more than 2,000 courts spread across more than 750 locations. You try to bring about judicial reform, and this has been happening already, Karen. Meron na ho tayong tinatawag na continuous trial system. Yung continuous trial system po, paiikliin niyo po ang litigation sa criminal cases from the historical 5 to 7 years to as little as 6 months to 2 years. That's a major change. Yung small claims po natin, kaya na gamitin ng mga taong bayan para yung mga maliliit na pagkakautang nila, pwede nang makuha kagad ang hustisya mula sa korte. Mag-file lang sila ng affidavit, ayan na po. Yung automated hearing, ang dami na pong napapaandar at kaya ho may confidence ang judicial reform ngayon kasi ho, mahaba nga ho ang panunungkulan. Ang importante lang po kaya ko bang harapin at taong bayan at sabihin, lahat po ng ginagawa ko ay ayon sa isang malinis na konsyensya. Wala hong nawala ni Cinco, wala hong ninakaw ni Cinco, tapat po ako sa aking tungkulin. Kaya ang tatanungin ko po, ano po ba ang dahilan at bakit ako pinapaalis ng ilang mga tao? I think the people must be assured that their constitutional rights are going to be protected. And the Chief Justice's principal duty is to protect the people, to ensure that there is rule of law, to ensure that the checks and balances, yung pagkakahati-hati po ng kapangyarihan sa gobyerno ay ayon sa konstitusyon at sa mga batas. So, yun
CJ.
Karen
Oo. Now, one of the accusations against you also in the complaint is supposedly falsifying documents and making it appear that it was an en banc decision when it wasn't. I'll read you one. That Attorney Gadon claims you committed culpable violation of the Constitution when you falsified a resolution in 2012 reviving the Regional Court Administration Office in Region 7. So the one who actually went against you on this was Associate Justice Teresita De Castro. What happened there? Okay, De Castro said your resolution was not even ratified by the en banc.
All right. The problem first of Gadon, he wasn't there with us. So there were 4 resolutions that he is assailing. He was never in any of the sessions that we discussed this. Decentralization has always been a key part of the court's reform agenda. And the decentralization resolutions were approved as early as the term of Chief Justice Davide. So the Chief Justice, being the chief implementer of the resolutions of the court, of course, takes cue from all of those past resolutions. And that is what I did. And you can see so many decentralization efforts being carried out until now. So what's the problem? We're solving so many inefficiencies from a terribly centralized system. Is there any harm that is being occasioned? Why should anyone even complain?
As they claim?
Of course. You cannot falsify
a resolution.
No, you cannot falsify a resolution because resolutions come only from the notes of the Chief Justice. So if the notes of the Chief Justice, and this is what I understand, is like that, it reflects that agreement or that consensus or that sense, then it comes out as a resolution. So how can I fake my own minutes?
So you don't need the agreement of the other justices?
No, what happens is that you discuss it.
Okay.
But when in a situation where there is nothing written, for example, and there are very different views, it will now become a question of whether the notes were really that good or not. Okay, so anyway, they have a chance to say, oh, okay, your notes didn't reflect fully what we understood to be. But it's not falsifying at all.
Okay.
It's not falsifying at all. In fact, if you can look at it this way, Karen, how can the ARCAO move be a wrong move if there is already GAA appropriation items and equipment authorized to be bought for it? When I came in fact, the ARCAO concept had already been actually implemented.
Now, Attorney Gadon's accusations go as far as you traveling business class. I mean, it's almost embarrassing to ask at this point. Are you allowed? Does the Supreme Court allow its justices to travel business class? How do you spend it?
The Human Resource Manual of the court itself indicates that the Chief Justice is entitled to traveling via full business class.
Okay.
And I need to travel that way. You go to a conference, you have to fully prepare. I make some of my speeches on the plane, and I'm not only a Chief Justice and I not only preside over en banc sessions, I am also the chair of the Judicial and Bar Council. I am also the chair of the Justice Sector Coordinating Council. I'm chair of the constitutionally fiscally autonomous agencies of government, as well as chair of the Philja Board of Trustees. And I have a lot of international engagements and roles as well. I need to prepare for all of this, even while I am monitoring all the work at home.
But what you're saying, essentially, it's allowed.
It's allowed.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's allowed. And so how can something that's completely legal be constitute an impeachable offense?
Can you spend 5 million on a car? Are you allowed?
5 million is the expenditure for the top 5 officials of government. And when you talk about them, these are the President, the Vice President, the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, and the Chief Justice. All of these are expressly authorized by a Department of Budget and Management circular to buy a vehicle with a high engine replacement so that they can be used for security, meaning they can be armored or bulletproofed.
And are you the first CJ to drive a 4x4?
I am the first to request that I be provided a security vehicle. 27 judges have already been assassinated since 1999. If you look at the security situation that I am facing, it is not unreasonable to use that express DBM circular to say that this is the security protocol that is indicated by the DBM itself, that the Chief Justice should have sufficient protection. And I think a Land Cruiser is really the most frugal large engine vehicle that can be armored or bulletproofed.
Okay.
So I went to the en banc and said, can I
requested?
have... Yes, it was a formal request. It was approved by the Procurement Planning Committee, and they said, yes, it's in the annual procurement plan. So it was approved in the annual procurement plan. It was approved when the bidding was successful, and the contract had to be awarded twice by all members of the court. So this is very reasonable. In fact, you can easily find other government officials using a Land Cruiser.
Okay. Do you think President Duterte wants you out?
The last statement that we had from the presidential spokesperson is that I should leave my office. So I think I understand.
Yeah, but do you think President Duterte has something personal against you?
Well, we have had no personal skirmish at all. The only time I remember that he made a remark against me was in connection with a letter I wrote to him in August of 2016, requesting that due process be afforded the judges. Basically, I was really emphasizing the need to defend the institutions and to allow the institutions to conduct their own investigations of their errant members. Because the moment you announce the names of judges, you basically take them out of their functions. That is, of course, everybody knows what he said during those moments. And I think at one time he thought that the Attorney Gadon's complaints regarding my extravagant lifestyle had some basis. And then he kept quiet about it. So let us just say that I understand that he has also asked me and the Ombudsman to resign at the same time. So does he have a hand in this impeachment? Well, I go by his official pronouncement, and I wish him success as a president, but I hope he understands that the checks and balances are very, very important for any democracy.
There's a group called FATE, and they believe that House Speaker Alvarez is a major player in the impeachment case against you. What they believe is it's to get back at you. Do you have any kind of history with Alvarez? They say it's because you testified against him during the Piatco case when he was still the OTC secretary. So first, did you ever testify against Speaker Alvarez at any point?
I testified against the onerous terms of the contract that was signed between the government and the pair cargo team. And Speaker Alvarez at the time was part of the committee that approved and the terms of reference for that contract. So the bidding, Speaker Alvarez had a lot to do with the result of that bidding. And one of the cases, in fact, that was filed against him was precisely for the conflict of interest situation that he found himself in when a company that his wife owned became the subcontractor for that for the construction of that contract. So while the testimony I gave in the Sandigan Bayan assails that contract, the overall participation that I had touched also on the participation of Speaker Alvarez. Maybe not in that particular testimony in the Sandigan Bayan, but in other parts of the defense of the Republic as well.
With how things are moving, do you see that this could be one of the reasons he's against you, or you don't connect it in that way?
Well, this is a matter that my lawyers are still considering.
Okay.
Whether it should be raised and at which point it should be raised. And I will have to listen to the lawyers whether that will be brought out.
Okay. So you don't know if he's out for vengeance?
Well, one can only read from his statements. And I hope everybody involved rises to the requirements of the Constitution that this should not be done for personal vengeance or for a personal agenda, but this is only a mechanism for accountability and to preserve, in fact, the democratic institutions, not to destroy the democratic institutions.
Where did you spend?
You see,
I mean, the earnings.
You see, as with every family, lahat naman po tayo may mga gastusin. Lumampas po ng 20 million ang natira after I had paid my taxes. Oh. So, out of those that remained after taxes had been paid, much has been spent on operating and living expenses. A great part was spent on the medical and eventually the funeral expenses of my mother, my father, and my father-in-law. A large part was spent on the residential house we are now occupying. Some went into financial instruments that we invested. Some went into cash accumulations. And then, of course, my children, they go to school. We have to pay tuition for them. We eat. We have to buy gasoline. We have medical expenses of our own. Sometimes we go out of town. So all of those are declared. The net assets are all fully declared. And the net assets wouldn't amount to anywhere, not even nearly 20 million, because years go by, you spend much of it.